going on, everyone? Welcome to the Sunday Hangout. We are live, and I am joined with Mr. Scott Johnson. Welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks for
Been a
having me.
minute.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having me. Good to see you again.
good to see you too. I know when we were talking off stage here a little bit, it's the 500 weekend, Daytona 500, baby.
Yeah.
Racing's back in full force. Football season's done. You before we jump into Star Wars a little bit, you went to Daytona for some of the Speed Week stuff recently.
I did. Not actually Speed Weeks, but the first couple races of the calendar year all occur in Florida, my home state. So I usually attend the IMSA 24-hour Rolex race, and I do that pretty much every year. I've gone consistently back to like 2012 or something. So that's one I really enjoy. For the last couple of years, it's been 2 weekends. So drove up, drove back, drove up, drove back. And then Sebring, they have an IMSA race there in March. They have the Daytona 500, of course. Don't always go to that. That's a little bit expensive. But they got Speed Weeks. They got ARCA, the truck races, and all that. Some of that's been rained out this year, unfortunately. It's raining here in Miami and probably raining in Daytona. Got delayed tomorrow. But I try to take advantage of that since I'm in state and actually don't need to fly to attend the race. Given enough days off, I can attend most of those races.
Yeah, I've always, back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I probably got out of racing, like being a hardcore fan like I was probably, I want to say 7 years ago. The sport changed for me.
Yeah.
It changed in a good way for the drivers, but like the excitement level for me, like I love Daytona and Talladega are both my favorite tracks. I actually got to visit Talladega, and it's like so overwhelming when you pull up there. It's just mind blowing.
It is, yeah. I'm more of an IndyCar fan. That's besides IMSA and IndyCar, my two big ones, and WEC, like the European series. Unfortunately, they aren't racing in Sebring now. They moved that race to, I think, Circuit of the Americas. But I attend the Indy 500 pretty much every year, barring COVID and a couple years where they had some restrictions. So that's something I really enjoyed. We talked a little bit offline about how you kind of have a little bit of a connection to the racing industry. So I don't want to say too much. I don't want to dock Stevie, but it's cool that you have that and have that experience. So that's a lot of fun. I can show some of the stuff I got from the IMSA weekends that I was there. They had an autograph session, and I picked up some things that are really cool.
Yeah, show them, please. I'm interested. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a fan of racing. It's just I'm not as hardcore.
Yeah. So they create Lego sets for a lot of the sports cars every year. It's some NASCAR too. I think they did one year, but I got this signed by Joseph Newgarden, one of the Porsche drivers, Porsche 963. This car actually won the race too, signed by the winning driver. Yes. So that was cool.
Crazy.
I got tons of T-shirts here. Just every car company imaginable here. This is all like free stuff. They give away hats and whatnot. Some of the people get it signed. Like you can get these cards they give away free. The drivers sign it. There's a big autograph session the day before, highly attended by everybody. Wow. The lines are at the door. The big star this year, let me see if I can find it, was the Formula One former champion Jenson Button.
Nice.
He attended. Everybody was trying to get his autograph, so he's the last guy here. And was fortunate enough
framed.
Fortunate enough to get his autograph. That's who everybody wanted to see. So that was a lot of fun. The parking was a little bit crazy. I kind of stayed on Daytona Beach, the hotel there, which was a different place than I normally stayed at. So it was a little bit different getting in and getting out, but it was a fun couple weekends.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Daytona. Good morning, Maxine. Thanks for watching and joining us. I've always wanted to go to the Daytona night race when it was in July. That was like always a dream of mine. I never got to do it. Growing up, my dad was a big racing fan, so Sunday was always race day. Dale Earnhardt fan, die hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously as I got older, Dale Jr. got involved, and then I started following him a lot. Had the opportunity probably 8 years ago. Kyle Busch came close. We went to a race where he was racing short track. It was the Dixieland 250. It's kind of a big event, and he was there. You could have paid to meet him, but there was just so many people and the line was crazy. So it's like,
yeah.
But we didn't do it. But yeah, I've been involved around racing and in the industry like my whole life. Actually, Johnny Sauter was just recently at the shop, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I know him. I know him well.
he's a big deal. He's a big deal. So yeah, he was at our shop, and we got good relationships with a lot of the drivers. So
yeah,
but that's cool, man. That you went to did all that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't do the Daytona 500 this year, especially now that it got delayed. It's probably a good thing that I didn't go up there. But St. Petersburg IndyCar is another one at the beginning of the year. That's also in March. That's in state. I forgot about that one. So it's it's a good deal. It's a lot of fun. I suggest if you're interested in that sort of thing, it's worth a try for sure.
Yeah, excellent. Well, what else has been new with you, man? It's been a while since we really got to face talk. Like what's going on in the Star Wars realm for Scott?
Well, for Scott specifically, I've been cleaning house a little bit. I had some time off over the holidays to sort of situate my collection and whatnot, actually go through some things that I haven't looked at in a long time. And I got into the business of selling some of the stuff off. Christopher Nelson has been selling off some of his collection and sort of like paring down, making it more manageable. And I'm kind of doing the same. For years, I've had duplicates and things that I didn't really want to waste my time selling, but now I'm making a conscious effort to say, well, I've had this stuff for a couple of years. Do I really want it?
Yeah,
maybe give it to a better home. Even if you're kind of selling it at a discount. I know money's tight for a lot of people with inflation and whatnot, but it's good to find these things a good home that aren't happy. They aren't happy in my home, but someone else will enjoy them more, hopefully.
Yeah. You know what, man? Honestly, I'm in the same mindset as you with some of my toys and figures. Like I have 2 Millennium Falcons, different eras. I have the Power of the Force Millennium Falcon, and then I have the 2005 version, which they look a little different. And I'm like, I don't really need 2 of these. Like it's cool, but it's like maybe somebody else can enjoy one of these. Like I'm in the same mindset as you. I've been kind of going through some of my stuff as well. I haven't sold any of it yet. I would prefer to trade for things that I'm looking for, but also I don't want to lug all this around to like a toy convention and roll up with a dolly with a bunch of toys and try to find what what I'm saying? So there's like,
yeah, it's tough depending upon the collection, the type of collection, how big it is, how feasible it is to ship. There's a lot of variables involved with a lot of these things. And toys, you can't ship that stuff media mail. So I imagine it's tougher. You got to find a convention or somebody to trade with. That's definitely something I wish I had down here. But even the comic shops, like if you try to trade in some of this stuff, which Legends material, expanded universe material, has gone up in demand. They used to have, I know at my current comic shop, they used to have them in long boxes and you could get them pretty much for cover price, maybe a little bit of a markup. But now they're prominently displayed like on the shelf on their own. And they have like, a big markup. It's at least $10 like for a Legends comic sometimes. So, but at the same time, when you try to trade some of this stuff in, they give you 50 cents on the dollar, maybe even less than that. So it's like GameStop. So it's tough trying to find value in your collection too. But at the same time, you don't want to spend a lot of time trying to wheel and deal. So
yeah, why do you think that is? I was thinking that too, because you're right. Because I've been to a couple comic shops and they do have some of the boxes that you can go through, but a lot of the older material is starting to pop up and, like you said, be displayed, nice fancy casing, and the money's a little more now for it.
Yeah, I think back issues, generally speaking, don't move very quickly. They could get a pretty good margin when they do sell, but just keeping that stuff in the shop, and it looks cool. Some prominent comic shops that have a big collection, you know, the action figures, the comics, all the ancillary things, all the toys and stuff. They like the impressiveness of their store, so they're more willing to take some of that stuff. But I have a feeling that, you know, I go in my comic shop, you know, every month or so, and a lot of that stuff just doesn't move. It stays there. They still have the Shadows of the Empire toys there, and it looks cool. Like you like going there almost for the museum aspect of it rather than
Yeah.
going to purchase it. But at the same time, they're a business. They have to you know, pay their employees and pay rent and all this stuff. So I think like the current issues move quicker. The games, the tournaments, card games, you know, other events they hold, Warhammer. That's really how they make their money. I think that's the name of the game as far as a business model and that.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like you were saying with inflation, it's hard because some of the markup on things is quite a bit, honestly. Like it's jumped tremendously. And I don't know if that's just because, like, I think collecting overall, whether it's comics, toys, books, like it's more mainstream than what it used to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a couple interesting aspects of it. Like when I was talking to someone about this, when a item sells, a collectible item sells on eBay at a certain price, that price tends to stick for a long time. Whether there's a lot of sales or not a lot of sales, people kind of remember that. And you also have the situation where the higher a price an item sells, the higher it goes, the more people want to buy it, which is contrary to every law of economics there is. It's just,
Yeah.
it's kind of reversed, but there's a hype building around some of this stuff, and it takes a while for those prices to cool off to say, well, you know, I bought this item at $100. It's been sitting in my house for a couple of years. I'm not going to let it go for less than $100. I think a lot of people have that mindset, and you just have to consider the space you have available. Do you want that? Do you want to circle your wagons around collecting some other type of thing? Because I have a lot of things besides Star Wars. Unfortunately, and having a lot of hobbies becomes expensive because your interests also, they jump around. You're thinking like, okay, 1 year, okay, I want to concentrate on the card games. One year I want to concentrate on all the ancillary like promo material for the expanded universe or the books or the action figures. It jumps around. I've been getting into Lego a lot recently with some of these vintage sets that they have printed out. I picked one item up. I'll show here.
Yeah. Interesting. Legos is another crazy market. Crazy market. Holy man.
You can see that here. Put my headphones
Jesus.
back in. But this they reprinted. This is the El Dorado fort that I couldn't get when I was a kid, but now that they reprinted, I mean, it's definitely one I want to pick up. Those Lego pirate sets, they're just amazing, man.
Yeah.
It's not something I'd necessarily want to take out of the box. Like I'm not going to play with it, but it's cool to have. And it's one of those things. If you don't buy it now, the price of it is just going to go up, and you're going to say, "I wish I would have bought that." They created, I think it was the Barracuda Bay pirate ship a couple of years ago, and I missed out on that. I'm like, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to play with it. But now I regret not buying it. So I was sure to pick that up.
Come on, let's be real. You're going to play with it. You're going to open it up. You're going to build it.
the thing is, okay, yeah, it's fun building it, but where are you going to put it afterwards?
Yeah.
Where are you going to display it?
I know
it's just, yeah, it's a dust collector.
I was having that problem the other day in one of my little bookshelves over there. I had Slave One is on there, Lego built, and Bo-Katan's fighters on there, and that thing's big the way it is, and the wings, you know, come up and go down. And it's like, man, I don't really have a good place to put this darn thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have some Legos too that I have put away that I'm not going to build, because I read an article months back that like investors, It was like an investment article, and they were like, you should put your stock in Legos rather than gold, because like you said, like Legos is like a huge thing, huge thing.
Yeah, and the return of it on investment, they have a website that is just dedicated to the prices, like when an item came out, what the original store price was versus what it's selling for now, the average price on eBay and things like that. And the return on investment is like, 800% in just like a couple years, right? It's just crazy. And not all of them are like that, obviously, but you
Right.
can kind of tell, the ones that came out in the glory days, the ones that people that played with them as a kid or maybe couldn't have them as a kid want them now, and now they have a lot of disposable income. That just shoots the price up.
Oh
And
yeah.
you can ride that train all the way up just investing in some of these Lego sets. And there's also a big thing I was looking into, where people make custom sets and then they'll sell them privately, but they mass produce it. So they'll create maybe 1,000 sets that are intricate, like an original model that's very, very intricate. Somebody put a lot of time in it, and just sell them to a limited audience.
Mm-hmm.
And those seem to have a lot of resale value as well, because they only make a given number of them, and they seem to be, they're the same Lego pieces, but they're a much better end result, higher quality model at the end, and people really like those. I wasn't aware that at the Lego stores they actually sell Lego parts individually. Like I just found that out. That was something I was not on my radar at all.
Really?
Right? Yeah. I've always seen Lego stores. But I assumed they just bought Lego models there. I didn't know they
Yeah.
had free parts where you could actually fill a box and then
That's great.
build your own stuff. That's amazing.
I had
That's,
no
that's
idea
good to
that.
know.
Yeah, I had no idea about that. I
Oh,
know
you
as
didn't know either?
no, I know.
'Cause I was talking to someone else. They're like, "Yeah, of course, they've been doing that for years." Like, that's obvious. I was like, "Wow, okay, great idea. I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That well, I mean, it makes sense, kind of.
It does." But I've always run into the problem where you have an idea for something, but you just don't have the pieces to build it.
Yeah,
That solves the problem. I thought the whole uh, part of not being able to build something was you just couldn't get the parts. You had to kind
parts.
of
Yeah,
cannibalize something else. So,
take pieces from this one
right,
and this one, put them together. Yeah, actually,
exactly.
I have a Star Wars book somewhere that actually says "Build Your Star Wars Lego," and it's got descriptions in there what you need to make, whatever it is. And it's like I just bought it because it's cool. It's Lego, and it's interesting to look at. But I never thought that you could really go somewhere and buy the individual pieces.
Yeah, and obviously they just have a selection, so it's not everything, but it's
Right.
a lot, and it's pieces that that can you could build off of. Like, okay, like these are just white bricks that you could create some sort of structure with. These are ice colored bricks that you could make some Arctic scene or whatever, so, or underwater or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess they rotate them so that they're different parts every couple weeks or so. I haven't been tracking it that long, so we'll see. We'll see.
That's
It
cool.
might be the next hobby I get into. Hopefully,
Oh man. Well, that's an expensive hobby that you'll be
yeah,
getting into, man.
it sure is. I got to sell off some other things to finance that.
Yeah. Yeah. See, well, that's what I mean. That kind of goes back to like, okay, there's specific things I'm looking for. This is what I got. You want to work out a deal? Because, like you said, I don't really sell nothing on eBay. I got burned on there one time with magic cards. And, I kind of kicked myself because partially it was my fault because I didn't do a signature and I was shipping it out of the country.
Mhm.
So when that time limit came up, they put in a claim and then they pulled the money from me, and I lost like $700.
That's a shame.
Yeah,
I got burned a few times, but it's not a common occurrence. Normally, like if I had a problem where I sold like a huge bulk set of books, and I guess the box must have broke somewhere, and I guess they didn't recover it somewhere, but it was a couple $100. Kind of hurts, but you just move on to the next item. Most of the time it works out fine, especially if you have a high eBay rating and all that stuff. So,
right. Yeah. And shipping, shipping is really increased too, depending on what you're selling.
Oh yeah, and the fees on eBay, like eBay's the last resort. I think if you have to sell something, it's much better to get in maybe a Facebook group or some Macari's another place. I guess the fees are a little bit lower there, and just try to meet up with people that are local to you if at all possible. You know, your clientele at your local game store is probably interested in a lot of the same things that you are. So take advantage of that. That's you were mentioning like trading cards, Magic cards. I'm not a Magic player, but like Pokemon has gone way down in value, you know, over recent years, and the bulk, it just has no value. It's like you might as well throw it in the trash. It's not worth even trading in now. For you get, was it
pennies,
$1,000 for $5 or something? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
And the price of the current packs are still $5. So it's like, okay, you're opening the pack, but you're never going to make your money back. There was a couple of years where you could open a box of cards and actually come out ahead. And now that just isn't the case. I guess it ebbs and flows depending upon the market.
Yeah. Well, and it's the production run, mainstream, you know, everything like geek culture or nerd culture or however you want to say it is like, now it's just like the norm. So it's out there for everyone's attention and people jump on board. You know, everybody thinks that, oh, I got a box of toys in my basement, I'm sitting on $1 million. Well, now you got everybody thinking like that. Right. So, and it's in production run too. Like I was saying, it's production.
Yeah. People have a lot of different motivations for collecting. One is just to buy the stuff so that you have it just in case the price goes up. I think, like you said, a lot of people buy for speculation, and a lot of people just buy for enjoyment. They like having the things. I mean, I bought some cards recently to fill out. Everybody knows I like the Decipher trading card game. I didn't know they do this on eBay with the certificate of authenticity. Like eBay actually checks the card there. I don't know if you can see it. There's a glare, but Emperor Palpatine, Death Star 2. So this card, you know, runs $200, $250, sometimes $300 for a holo. And I've been just trying to fill out some of the decks so that I have a meta deck for some of the formats. And for the Reflections 2, which is like the expanded universe set, you need 4 or 5 Emperor Palpatines. It's like $200 each. It's crazy. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's like I want to buy it now because there might be a time where you just can't get this stuff. It's just too out of the budget, out of the realm of possibility to be able to track that stuff down.
Yeah, and you also got to check different markets too, because I had recently picked up the Mace Windu Black Series 50th anniversary edition from the Micro Series Clone Wars, and on Amazon it was on sale for $17. Now on eBay it was like $30. Like brand new, both. Yeah, I'm like, So you got to kind of like, you know, Maxine turned me on to Macari. I've been on there. It looks like some good stuff. I haven't interacted or made any purchases on there, but
I think it's because eBay has a bigger audience. Like they know they could sell it higher because there's a bigger market available there. Mercari, there's not that many people there, and they're not going to look for all their normal eBay searches on there, and also like Shop Goodwill, and there's some other places where you can get some deals on collections that people are getting rid of that they don't really know the value of it. Sometimes that's really where you get your best deals, is somebody just trying to dump their entire collection. Because if you buy in bulk, you kind of get a discount, a bulk
little
discount.
rate.
Yeah. Rather than buying individual cards, or depending upon the type of thing you're buying, books, comics, action figures, whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of one of my buddies was telling me about that. You know, he's like, you know, if you've come across a collection, I mean, you buy the whole thing, get a better deal, take what you want, and then try to resell it. But then that's time consuming.
If you can swing it, there's some Star Wars Decipher auctions that just make your head spin. I mean, it's like $5,000, $6,000. I'm like, who can spend that? Are they selling their car to buy it? You know, like, man, it's crazy. Like, you could probably make your money back, but how long would that take? do you really want to do that? Now, if you have a dedicated store already that you can integrate this into and sell, you have a process of selling it, yeah, they can make a lot of money. And I'm sure the card stores do. Category 1 games. I talked to the guy. He's on the Facebook groups. He sells all these Star Wars card games. He sells all these vintage card games. And I bought a bunch of the Wizards of the Coast miniatures that he got in one time. And some of those are just crazy in price, like the expanded universe characters in the Old Republic and the Sith, like the Exarchon and Uliquel drama and all those really go for a lot of money.
Man. Yeah, them are the little, right? The little tiny, like the Hero Click style. That's kind of
And that's the only opportunity you're able to get some of these EU figures as a real, action figure in any format. So they keep making some of these Black Series figures, but Wizards of the Coast, they have a lot of expanded universe sets for people that aren't aware. All eras too. Force Unleashed. There's like legacy sets with Yuuzhan Vong, New Jedi Order, all this stuff.
I know. I've seen Arthur and Maxine were showing me some of their figures that they have, or like them legacy comic packs. I know now I'm talking about 3 3/4 inch.
Yeah,
but
that's another thing.
Yeah, I'd love to get my hands on some of that, but it's like,
yeah, especially towards the last couple of years of the EU as it was going away, there was a lot of opportunity to get EU material in other formats, whether it be Lego, whether it be that 3 3/4 action figure. A lot of those Lego Force Unleashed sets are just stupid expensive. The like you mentioned, the comic packs. I always assumed those would be around forever because like we didn't. I saw it in stores. I remember going to Target and seeing those and just passing them up, thinking they'd be around forever, and they weren't. And you really regret that now because they got Corran Horn figures and they got Shira Bree, all these X-wing figures and all the Crimson Empire, those legacy sets. Some of them were exclusive to Walmart, but man, I really regret not getting those now because that was your one opportunity to get more EU stuff that is now gone. Well, now you can get it, but you have to pay.
You got to through other EU collectors. I mean, it's some of the things that they have done through the years for like the Jaina Solo Black Series figure, like that's hard to get.
Oh, is it now? Oh.
Yeah,
because that's fairly recent, or I think of that as a fairly recent figure.
Right. Yeah, well, that was during that process where fans voted, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if she was a fan vote or not. I remember they announced her, and I ordered her immediately. It took forever to finally get it. Same with Mara Jade. You pre-order these, but it takes forever. It seems like you're the last to actually get the stuff. So I don't know what the point of pre-ordering it is. It's just crazy. And I'm out here stressing out. Am I going to actually get the figure or not? Do I have to buy it from somewhere else? And
well, that's one thing I worry about too when they finally announce something, a figure, and it's like, okay, I want to pre-order it, and you're like, maybe I should wait. Okay. Like I'll wait a little bit, and this happened to me before, and it's like it's out of stock, like the pre-order option's gone because they don't know if they can fill the demand. We got a little message here, Maxino. Jaina was indeed the fan voted figure. Okay, that's what I thought.
She's the Jaina
the expert. So that's right. Awesome video, by the way, showing some of your collection, Maxine. That was cool the other day. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to really pick and choose what you want to go after when there's so many cool, like I really want to get some of the Yuuzhan Vong. After now finally reading it all, to have some of the figures would be so amazing.
The problem is when you browse YouTube and you look up a lot of these old games, you see some results of people having a lot of fun with these games. Like think of an army, like a Warhammer army, but it's Yuuzhan Vong. And they have like a massive Yuuzhan Vong army versus New Jedi Order. Like, that stuff's cool. You know,
Yeah.
I wish I knew how to play that game. We got to find somebody that's like an expert, because apparently it's not that hard to actually play. It's fairly straightforward. But I don't know the rules. I don't have anybody to play against here. Like,
yeah.
when we call up my friends and say, yeah, let's have a big miniature battle.
Yeah, a full out war. Come on over.
Who's gonna do that? They'll be like, Scott, you're out of your mind.
Yeah. Well, talking about some of the games too, like not that long ago, I'm on Steam. I've got the original Battlefront, because I remember playing that back in the day when it first came out, and it's like, oh man, it was like a sale. I think it might have been around May the 4th. There's always sales on games, so I picked it up, and it's been a long time since I played. It was terrible, but it was so cool just to play that style video game again. Like, I'm not hip on all the new stuff. I'm terrible at it. It's too complex for me. Like, I haven't played like Jedi Survivor or none of them. Like, I'm way beyond my video gaming abilities now.
I played the Battlefront a little bit, thinking that it would be like the Star Wars arcade. I don't know. You're about my age, so maybe you'll remember this. You remember the Star Wars trilogy arcade, where it was like a you went around a set path and you just like shot at all the TIE fighters and stormtroopers and stuff. I was hoping it would be someone like that, but not quite exactly. People like to play online, versus each other, and I'm not really into playing online. I just wanted a fun game that kind of replicates the trilogy, and then they have all these like new films and stuff, which are great for people who like them, but it wasn't my thing. I wanted to like it. And then people got all bent out of shape because I guess they were selling, they were doing these microtransactions to add new weapons and new character attributes and things. And I didn't play online, so I didn't know about all that, but it seems like a headache to deal with.
Yeah. Well, everybody mods stuff now. And yeah, I'm not a big online gamer. Fortnite, I was doing that with my kids for a little while. That's about...
If I'm playing video games, I'm not sure it's Star Wars. There's some old school Star Wars games. Like I know a couple of us are talking about like the Empire at War, and I know Lance has been doing some streams about it, and it was a topic of conversation, I think, on Lance's stream with Dylan last night. But I'm not into it. I played Rebellion, which was like the predecessor to that, which is a more dumbed down version of that, but it's still there's a lot of strategy involved in it, and it's a similar type of game. But I was right at home with that, with the controls, like you said. I got that on Steam as well. But I just don't have the time to play it. It's one of those things that it just takes up your weekend if you try to fit that in. And I'd rather play some of these newer racing games, or even the old ones like Project Cars 2. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to look at that one. Well, it's pretty hard to get racing games on the console now. They've mostly moved to the computer. There's Assetto Corsa. There's a couple that are still in production for PS4, which I have, that are top of the notch, racing simulations. The problem is with it, the AI just isn't that great. It's like they created this template for a great racing game, and they didn't finish it off. Like they missed certain things, and then for Project Cars 3, they take out the pitting sequence and all this, and they try to fix the AI, which they did, but for a long race, for a long endurance race, it just doesn't work out. You want to be able to pit, you want to be able to adjust the car, and I think their model now is just pick up and play for the console games. They don't really want a hardcore simulation. So you have to go to a rig with a steering wheel and a high-tech computer with 3 monitors, and all about that for iRacing. So
yeah, that's all hard. Yeah, them setups are wild. Thank you, Maxine, for being on point. Got another comment here. Knights of the Old Republic is the best Star Wars game created. That's what I hear. I've played it a little bit, but not a lot. I want to.
Yeah. I missed that one. That was one of the only Star Wars games that came out like pre-2005 that I didn't really play. I tried playing it later, but I couldn't do very well at it. I probably needed a strategy guide or something, because I couldn't figure out After you beat the Sith at the end of the first level, I couldn't figure out how to get out of there, what to do next.
Yeah, it's always good. I think they remade that in like a limited run. That company that does them games, like a big box set
with posters
with the
and all
strategy
these
guide,
ancillary things. Yeah,
yeah,
that was great. I think Marcel did a video about that.
yeah, yes, he
That's
did.
really cool.
Yeah, I on the racing thing, I really got into NASCAR sim racing back in the early 2000s, and I had a Logitech Momo steering wheel with a shifter.
All right.
I was in an online league. That was so much fun, man. Oh, it was so much fun.
Yeah, they still do those. They nickel and dime you because now it's a subscription based, and you got to buy all the cars separately and all the tracks, and you can get banned if you don't follow the rules in racing, and you got to show up. If you do a league, you actually have to show up for the races on a consistent basis and all that. It's like, oh man, that's too much homework. It sounds really cool, but it's like at this point in my life, I can't really do that.
Yeah, that's another thing I can't really put the time in. I know I had a conversation with Lance, and he's like, you need to play it, because he was doing some videos and playing some games like you mentioned, and he's like, you got to play it. And I want it because of the story, and that's what I've heard too from others, that the story is so good in the game. You know, it adds to the books, and it's, I want it for that, but trying to dedicate the time.
That's what I'd like to see, you know, as far as videos, like ideas for content creators and things people like to do. I'd like to see Knights of the Old Republic, and also the Old Republic MMO, the storyline. If there could be dedicated videos, somebody to play through it, explain the storyline, somebody who's familiar with it, that knows what they're doing, that can actually, you know, beat the game in a fairly easy fashion, because us old school players probably wouldn't be able to do that. That's what I'd like to see. And there are videos out there, but a lot of times it's no commentary, or you know, they're just way too long, that shows every little secret of every level. And I don't want that. I just want the story, the basis of the story. What should we know about this game? And I know there's been some EU.com articles about that, but I'd like to see like a YouTube video or a video series explaining the storyline of those games that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Yeah, I think Alex might have told me that there are some video, like somebody maybe, like the cutscenes, like there might be pieces.
There are cutscenes. I think you need a little bit more than just the cutscenes for Knights of the Old Republic. I'm not sure about the MMO. I'm a little bit less familiar about that, but you need to actually go through and play the game so that you get the story, like who the character is supposed to fight, and you know, every level, all the planets that they visit. I don't think you can get that information from just the cutscenes. Is what I'm saying. So, what's up, Arthur? See Arthur in the comments there.
Arthur, what's up, buddy? How you doing, sir?
This guy's been doing some funny videos.
Yeah,
the shorts that he's been doing for things like Supernatural Encounters. I have the same reaction. It's just hilarious. I love it. I sit down for it and I'm like, man, this is too much homework. I don't know if I'm ready.
I know it, man. I'm getting a little worried because everybody keeps saying that. I'm like, oh man, am I gonna have Google ready and a dictionary and all kinds of stuff prepped? Well, now that you mentioned, here, we got show off this baby right here, since you mentioned Supernatural Encounters, the Amazon edition.
Mm-hmm.
Very good quality.
Yeah. Like, is that you just got book one, or you got all three?
No, I got all three.
Okay.
I got all three. Oh no, I didn't just buy one. No, I got all three right here.
You might want to just take one at a time. That might be the way to go. I think it's a little bit more manageable, because I got that contributor hardcover version, and you know, I'm reading the first part of it, and it's very familiar because I read the earlier, it was a 2018 version of Supernatural Encounters, and like, this is great, but like, what are all these extra pages, man? This is thick. There's so many appendixes and that it's intimidating for sure.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad that they're in a three book set, because I have a big version of it, and it's a big clunker, man. It's beautifully done, but it's like, holy man, it's heavy, and it's like, I want to take my time, and so and it's like the trade paperback size, and that's like my favorite. You know, I need to feel the media I'm reading. Got something else in the comments here about KOTOR. Has tons of story in the form of dialogue. You really need to interact with your party members as well as get their backstory to fit all the pieces together. Very immersive.
Yeah, that's what I figured, because I watched the video with all the cutscenes and I couldn't follow it. I could follow what was there, but I felt like I was missing certain things. So I'm not surprised to hear that. So I don't know how compressed you could play the whole game and get all that dialogue. Would it be 20 hours? Would it be less than that? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I see some playthroughs that are many hours, and I end up falling asleep through them. So I need somebody talking to me during the video, like guiding me through it, like what actually is going on, so I can pay attention to it.
Yeah. How long does it actually take to play through the game, Rat Sewage?
Maybe somebody in the comments knows. Yeah.
Yeah. Professional player here we got. So yeah, well, while we're waiting to see if the pro gamer there will let us know about how long it takes, what are you currently reading something?
Not reading anything at the moment. I should be reading Supernatural Encounters. That is up on the list there. I have my bookmark in it now, but yeah, I've just been kind of traveling, kind of planning out the rest of the travel schedule for the rest of the year, trying to make sure I have enough days off and to cover for that. I have some friends and family weddings out of state, so I'll be racking up the frequent flyer miles for sure this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, just in and out. I haven't really had the opportunity to read, and that's something I've talked about with some other Star Wars fans, is like Marcel's doing a great job with the Super Literary Encounters, the book club, actually getting people to read the content. And I think oftentimes the focus is strictly on the discussion of the EU, the fandom, you know, what's next up as far as coming out. We have these things. There was a revelation this week about who was the real author of Rebel Force, right? We found out Robin Wasserman is actually the real author, apparently, even though she hasn't said anything throughout the years. She's never done any interviews or anything like that, which came as a surprise for some of us older fans. I know me for sure. But we talk about that sort of stuff and not really focus on the book club aspect of it, talking through the books. There's a lot of channels that do reviews on the books, but do people just watch those types of videos and maybe not read as much as they used to? I think that's the case. And I know for a fact, I'll confess, it's been a while since I've read most of the EU. Like a lot of my memory is just from 10 or more years ago. And just trying to recall this, you forget a lot of the stuff, particularly books that you may have only read once. And I would really like to get back to the fact that people used to do like book clubs and stuff in the past. I'd really like to kind of get back to basics as far as reading through it and have audience participation and letting people know what their thoughts are as they read the books, rather than after, you know, I read this book. Okay, here's my review on it. There's way too many of those types of reviews. Is just like nitpicking EU content as far as what I'd like to see. Obviously, everybody has their own channel, can make their own decisions, but that's something I kind of see that's missing.
Well, yeah, there are some great people out there that do amazing things with the reviews. I was trying to go down that road, but I'm just terrible at that. That's not my thing. I mentioned that before. I'm just not good at it. But I have a book club with a few of my friends. I don't know if you've heard. I mentioned it in a few different situations. Yeah. And we get together once a week and we talk about it in our group. But now we're starting to, we possibly might put together a stream like kind of what you're saying, where we read 6 chapters this week. We're going to talk about it and give our thoughts so far, because the few friends that I have that are involved, they don't know a lot about the expanded universe side of things. So just like myself, we're all kind of going through it for the first time, and it's exciting. And our conversations are pretty fun. If I'm not going to lie, like we really get into it and try to think where it's going to go. And so we're working on doing that, possibly getting it set up so we're in the same room, because we live by each other. But that's a lot of money for sound equipment to do all that.
Right. Because you need a place to hook up all the different microphones. Yeah.
Microphones. We looked into it, and it's I think $700 or $1,000 just for a decent mixer. It's like, okay, do we really want to cough that up? I mean, it'd be cheaper for them to go get a microphone and a webcam But we were just trying to make it a little more, okay, people can, wow, they're in the same room, like a little more visually.
Right. And do reviews or do podcasts in between books. Say, how do you like this so far? You know, where do you
Right.
think this is going? That's fun to hear, especially if you're reading along at the same time. There used to be a couple podcasts that did that. They said, okay, this month we're reading Trusit Bakura, you know, and then they kind of moved on to the new canon, which I wasn't a big fan of. I was like, man, you should do some Legends books every once in a while. That would be a lot of fun. And I just think that's something that's just missing. And you see Matt's reviews, and he reads so fast. You know, he go speed reads through all these at a rate that's you question if he's even read the books. But
well, he's on his second reread, so I mean, and
yeah,
he's pretty on point with all of his
yeah,
knowledge. You know, I'm
yeah.
sometimes depending on what they're talking about. Like I've watched, you know, like Alex Goes Live and Matt, and it's like I get nervous because one comment can lead you into a conversation about a book that I'm not aware of, and now he's spitting off, okay, this happens and this happens. It's like, oh, I don't want to know about that right now because I want to experience it for the first time. Like I'm currently started the Dark Nest trilogy, and I don't know nothing about it except that there's bugs in there. So when people start talking about that, I'm like, I don't.
Let me ask you this, because this was my kind of feeling when I read through that the first time. Did it feel like the Chiss appeared out of nowhere as a big faction that became a continuing, that reappeared through several book series, and they kind of came out of nowhere?
Yeah, well, well, before we get in that, let's finish. I see Rat Sewage got us some info here. Depending on how much of a completist you are and how well you know the game and the tricks, speed, I'd say about 25 to 40 hours. Okay.
That's a lot. That's a big undertaking.
If you put points into 4 speed straight off the bat, you can really cut a lot of the time out of the game. Okay. So it's a little trick to the... Yeah, because there's points. I believe it's you put attribute points in your character.
Okay.
Class choices play a factor as well.
Yeah, because that's a lot longer than some of the other Star Wars games that I'm familiar with. The Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy, those can be played a lot quicker than 25, 40 hours. I'm not sure how many exactly. So some of those levels are a little bit long, but I'm not sure you need to get into the nitty gritty on all of the levels. You just need the basic story and maybe the ending. You could skip around a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. And I'm one of them guys where when I used to get into, like, I was a big RPG fan. Like, I love Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 7 is like my favorite game ever. But like, I'd just get lost in time. Like 4 hours would go by and it's like, I didn't even eat yet. What just happened? You know, so that's makes me nervous too. But on to the Joiner King, when the Chiss appeared, like it just kind of, it was like, bam. Now there's some animosity going on here.
Yeah, I feel like they were a bigger entity than I thought they were initially. They were introduced because I read in release order, right? They appeared first. I mean, you got the Hand of Thrawn or Hand of this is the Hand of Empire of the Hand. I guess it was in the duology. But then you hear that there's this Chiss Empire in things like Survivor's Quest, and you get a little bit more in Outbound Flight, and I'm like, wow, this is like a big entity that's it seemingly came out of nowhere. Just reading it in release order, and I don't know, it was kind of jarring to me that became a reoccurring faction that you read about in the series to come. I won't spoil anything, but it's
I'm not. I just started it, so I don't. I'm enjoying it so far, though. See, now when I finished New Jedi Order, I went in and when I got closer to the end, I went into it with the mindset of this was supposed to be it. Like this was all that was set up to be. There was nothing after the New Jedi Order, from what I've heard through the grapevine. Like there was the Dark Nest wasn't planned. None of these other books, Legacy, wasn't planned. If I'm correct in saying that.
Well, I mean, they were planned later. they kind of changed their mind in certain aspects, and even throughout the New Jedi Order, they changed their mind as far as what they were going to do. But yeah, it was much different when Del Rey took over than with Bantam. Bantam had an era to play with, and there was a lot of Imperials of the Week that were the bad guys in those books. But ultimately, you could read a book that occurs chronologically later and then go back, and you didn't feel like you missed anything. Like you could read those more or less any order. You know, if you keep a couple things in mind, and interestingly enough, they didn't build off each other in the sense that a lot of them didn't mention the biggest event of like Dark Empire. You know, a lot of them just ignored it, told their own story, and then eventually they come to, I think you've gotten this far, a peace agreement with the Empire, to move on to the New Jedi Order. And then from there, they told the story in a linear direction. You know, one right after another. They didn't go back and add to this, although they did with things like the comic series Invasion and stuff, but it told a different type of story. The novels continued the post Return of the Jedi story, you know, in a different way than the Bantam books did.
Yeah, that's I'm enjoying it so far. I mean, like I'm liking it, but I tried to finish the New Jedi Order series with the mindset like this was this was it. This was the wrap to the story. Like this is the final outcome. But in my head, I couldn't really do that because I knew there's more books to read. I thought the Unifying Force was amazing. Yeah. I thought it was an excellent novel. Like great story.
Couple twists and turns at the end there.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I didn't see a couple things coming. And then
the court jester.
The Omni.
Yeah. I always called it Omni too, but
that's how, man, it's the way I'm reading it. That's what I'm calling them. Somebody else wants to call him something different, go ahead.
Right.
I thought Jason, that moment was like divine.
Mm-hmm.
It was very impressive reading that. I almost, in my head, I had it's almost like Brigier knew that about Jason. Like
Brigier is an interesting character. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions about her, but I didn't really like that angle of like Zanoma Sikat and you know, her character and how they related to the Yuuzhan Vong. That was one that didn't really sit right with me, but everybody has their preferences on that. Right. What do you think of that?
I liked it. I liked how she was very okay. She was a good character, very interesting. And I read Rogue Planet, and I like that novel as well. You know, and I remember the name, but I just didn't like put the connections together. You know, especially with like seeding. Like that was cool to reseed that. You know, Anakin had like the most amounts of seeds, 9, I believe it was. That it was just cool, and her philosophy style. I loved all that.
Interesting. Yeah, they really get into the idea of gray Jedi and like good and evil. That you start to question that, and then that continues on to the later series, where it doesn't feel like there's dedicated good guys or bad guys. There's heroes on both sides, in all factions, kind of. And there are some like dedicated that are for sure meant to be bad guys, but then there are other more sympathetic characters that are allies of them and whatnot. So yeah, it's interesting. That's a reoccurring theme that kind of continues on into the later series, Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited because I don't own all them books. Legacy, I have some one-offs here and there through the set, but so I'm excited to kind of hunt for them again, or get them off of Amazon would probably be the easiest way. I am a part of some of the book smugglers.
Oh yeah, the book smugglers. That is a great resource as far as getting books that it maybe in a certain format you want. I'm sure if you don't care about the format, it's even easier to get them. But yeah, you can get a whole set. Like a while ago, I got the whole Sci-Fi Book Club set of New Jedi Order for $300.
Oh
And
my goodness.
I had most of them previously. But I was like, man, yeah, that's too good to pass up. So I got that, and I sold and gave away some of the sci-fi book clubs that I already had, but these were in good shape, and now I have them all uniform on my
Darn
shelf.
it, Scott.
They're the same size. Yeah, same size.
I love that science fiction book club edition, man. I have a few of them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's great. They're beautiful.
Yeah, I was at the bookstore though too, and you were mentioning you like the Essential Legends format, which is about that same size, but in a paperback format. And I found those are easier to read than the old paperback style. You can like keep the book open, the book stays open. You're not creasing the spine and whatnot. So, yeah, that is an upgrade, I think, in a lot of cases.
I think so as well. I like them a lot. They don't seem to, the binding doesn't get all jacked up when you're reading like the old paperbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But the science fiction,
I like the fact that they stay open, because I try not to crease the spine, and you're having trouble like looking at the beginning of the page there, it's hard to see.
Yeah. So I would like to get them in hardcover, obviously, like the remaining Legacy and Fate. Mm-hmm. And I see them on there from time to time, but I just haven't pulled the trigger.
Yeah, well, if you're reading through the first time, I don't think you necessarily need to get those now. You can kind of read through them and then get a archive set for the shelf later that you haven't read through and aren't damaged. They're minter condition than would be otherwise.
Yeah, actually, I made my first purchase off there, and I got Mall Lockdown hardcover because I wanted that so bad in hardcover. And the gentleman threw in one of the Galaxy of Fear books.
Oh, which one?
Dead book 2.
Okay.
I can't think of the City of the Dead. City of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Those are all good books. I like those. I like that series.
Yeah.
So you plan on reading through that at some point?
I read one prior to talking with, and then I was going to read one on Halloween last year with my daughter, but she'd seen the cover and said no way. So we did. Really? That was going to be my first one. Yeah, the War Machine I think I picked, and she's like, no, we're not reading that, Dad. I'm like, oh, all right, well then never mind. But I would like to get them all. Yeah.
Yeah, you could probably read those out of order. I don't really recall, but they have a very Goosebumps books type of feel, kind of same style where every chapter ends on a cliffhanger, so you can kind of continue to read it. It urges you on, and
they're good.
Yeah. I think they're great. They're a little bit. They touch on the supernatural a little bit, but oftentimes they kind of retcon it and say, oh, it was just Zach and Tash's imagination. That didn't really happen. Those people didn't come back from the dead or anything.
It was cool. It was cool to see Boba Fett. It's cool to see the characters kind of doing their things in there.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that.
I think every book has a cameo or even kind of a full-on appearance of someone else from some of the other book series or the films.
Yeah. And you mentioned a little bit earlier that the big mystery that was unsolved with the Rebel Force series, Alex Wheeler. Yeah, I'm in. A lot of people hit me up about that to do an interview with her, and I sent something out to her.
Okay.
And then in my head, I'm like, shit, she's probably just getting flooded.
Yeah. I'm sure she is getting flooded, but hey, I mean, she outed herself technically. So, I mean, what do you expect? The whole thing was very surreal for me because during that time, I think Rebel Force came out 2007, 2008.
Yeah, around that time, I believe.
At that time, Star Wars and the expanded universe were going pretty strong. And there were a lot of podcasts. There was a lot of author interviews. The Force.net had every little detail that you can imagine, all the bits of EU news and books coming out and things like that. And I just find it incredibly hard to believe that because I followed it so closely during that time, that she would keep to herself anonymous. She was a fairly young author, and some people seem to suggest she may have used some of Jude Watson's notes or something like that. She mentions in her email that she read Jude Watson's book series and had a lot of respect for her, or has a lot of respect for her, and really enjoyed that series. And she said she was flattered that people thought Jude Watson
She
actually wrote the books.
Yeah.
But what did she think people thought? Like, how do you write a book series, release it, and just you aren't even curious about what people thought about it, or who wrote it? That just doesn't make sense. You wouldn't appear on any interviews anywhere except that one Barnes and Noble thing that somebody found a clue that she had wrote it, which led to them emailing her and her actually confirming that she wrote the series. And then they posted on Reddit 3 months later. It's just there was a lot of things that they censored her email, which her email's public. I'm not suggesting people email her, because I'm sure she's getting flooded with that.
Yeah.
It was very surreal for me. I didn't believe it initially, but it seems to be, from all indications, that appears to be true.
The case. Yeah.
But I want the story behind it. Like, if you do interview her, I'd like to know why she didn't, why she wasn't in contact with the Star Wars community. A lot of people seem to think she just signed the contract, wrote the books, and that's it. But if she was so proud of the series, like she said she is, I would just think she'd have some contact, or at least some idea of what people thought of the books, or the mystery, because she said she had no idea that it was a big mystery who wrote the series. And I don't know. It doesn't make any sense any way you look at it.
I don't know what to say. I mean, maybe she signed NDA.
Non-disclosure. Very possible. But what are the reasons behind that? If she can talk about it, I'd be very curious to know all that stuff.
Maybe they just didn't tell her that it was popular. Like, that's a thing. I suppose
how would you not know, though? People seem to think like Star Wars kind of died off after the prequels ended. Like, Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005, but the EU was still going strong at that point. And there were a lot of, like I said, there were a lot of author interviews, a lot of guest appearances. There was conventions and stuff. And to not be a part of that, I can't understand that. I can't understand that. It didn't sit right with me. But maybe, like you said, there's a good reason for it. Because if she signed an NDA, then we know, okay, that's why. But why would Scholastic not want their author known for that series? Is there a licensing reason for that? Just curious.
Or some people just maybe like they just like, I've tried to contact Jude Watson because it would be amazing. Like, I've looked for interviews for her, and there's not a whole lot out there. You know, obviously that's her pen name. But so I contacted her real address, and I didn't get a response, which is fine. Like, I've reached out to a lot of authors and talked to a lot of them through emails back and forth. Like, they just don't want to do a podcast, but we still had a conversation, and that's cool. And they were nice. And some maybe they did their thing and moved on. Like, that's a thing too. You know, some of them take it as a paycheck, and that's okay. That's fine. That's good.
But I think even Jude Watson had some interviews back in the day. Like everybody I can think of had some connection, even if it wasn't live on a video or a podcast or something. They had some text Q&A or some participation with the community in some form or fashion. And the fact that Alex Wheeler was completely anonymous. Okay. But what's the reason for it?
It'd be interesting if somebody can talk with her and just get a little, like you said, get that brought to light and see, you know, how, whatever. It'd be cool.
Maybe now is not the time to try to reach her inbox.
That's what I was thinking that earlier. I'm like,
it's
man,
probably buried.
Shouldn't have did that. I'm like, she's probably like overwhelmed with all this now, and maybe that was a private conversation with someone, and she didn't think it was gonna be public. I don't know, which is fine because I know it's a big mystery. Like, I've heard the story. Like, everybody thought it was Jude Watson just using a different name, or
there were evidence. There was evidence that Pablo said Jude wrote it. I don't think he had meant to say that, but there was something on Twitter that indicated that she wrote it. And people have even asked Judy Blundell, who's Jude Watson,
Yep.
questions about X7, some of the characters from it, and she addressed them. Like, it doesn't make sense given all the facts that I have been aware of throughout my life, that it's not Jude Watson. That was really a surprise, to say the least.
Well, it'll be interesting if some more comes to light from this, to see to get some of the backstory, because I like hearing that too, man. That's why I like talking with some of these folks, because it's fun, it's interesting.
Yeah, that was definitely the news of the week, maybe of the year. We'll see. There's a lot of the year left to go, but man, that was a surprise.
Well, there's some great people out there, man, that do a lot of good research and dig in and put time in. Like it's very impressive. So kudos to all those folks that were involved with uncovering that mystery so far. And like the EU's it's had a movement for a long way going strong before I ever got involved with learning about this, you know.
Yeah, and it was mainstream up until the EU going away in 2014. Then we kind of went. We were the loyal opposition, so to speak. That we were trying to still make it relevant by talking about it through podcasts and YouTube videos and things like that. And there was a movement to try to get it continued with the Twin Suns Foundation and the billboards and things like that. And now I think there's more and more fans, more and more percentage of fans have started reading the EU since it ended. And they just don't realize that, okay, this used to be the continuing saga of Star Wars. It used to be the story of what happened after Return of the Jedi, like it or not. That was the format. It was through books and comics, and now it's a different situation. But yeah, I mean, it was talked about all the time. When a new book was coming out, the author would go on a media tour with all these podcasts, and he'd go to conventions. And some of these authors are still involved with the community. You know, some of them write new canon books as well. But John Jackson Miller, I mean, he still makes his rounds and pushes his Legends books, which a lot of people enjoy. So yeah, people forget that sometimes, I think.
Yeah, he does a good job. He's always in the media, we'll say, and talking about all of his works, his new canon, his old canon, the comics, you know, because a lot of them are starting to be re-released. They're starting to do epic collection runs again.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that, because I want to pick up the first Knights of the Old Republic.
Did you pick up that Inkstone Press, that hardcover version of Dawn of the Jedi?
No. It looks did you? It looks beautiful. Yeah. I wish they would do more of them.
Yeah, I hope they do a Knight Errant, and I got a bookmark there. Signed and numbered. I have 201 there, signed by Tim Levin. But it's like this cover, man. You need to have a copy of this, even if you don't care for it. It rivals the Czech Baka cover, like the Czech Republic Heir to the Empire cover. I mean, just look at that jawline. That is something else. It's crazy. I just need that for the collection, just as a conversation starter.
That was just on one site to pre-order, correct?
Yeah, it was through Inkstone Press, and I got tons of emails on delays of that it wasn't printed right initially, or at least the ones that were headed to the United States had some sort of error that they needed to reprint, and it arrived about a month later. But I got it, and you know, it's in good shape. It has a nice dust jacket, has a protector. Everything, as far as I can tell, looks good about it, and it's a hardcover format, so I naturally I had to have it. Yeah.
I should have jumped on board with that right away, but I didn't.
You probably still get it. I think there's 500 copies made. You might be able to get one either on the secondary market or primary.
Yeah, imagine what the secondary market's going to go for.
Yeah, I mean, it's early yet. It could go up in price later on, but you might be able to get one now.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they did the whole run like that, or in that like a hardcover format. That would be great for the Essential Legends. I think that would be amazing.
There's just some I'd especially like that never were printed in hardcover, like Knight Errant, Ruins of Dantooine, if they ever do that as an Essential Legends collection, probably not. But if they do, I'd love a hardcover version. The X-Wing series,
Well,
there was some people that did their own versions of the hardcover X-Wing series that look really nice, but
yeah,
I'd like to get an official copy because there's something about printing your own books that just I don't like.
doesn't
I
feel the
don't
same.
like.
Yeah,
I don't like to do it unless I absolutely have to. So yeah,
yeah.
it's good to support the authors and the companies that are willing to print this stuff, even if we don't like the covers. Like we can make fun of the cover of this book or whatever, but at the end of the day, they're releasing the content in a format that's still accessible to other people, so that's a good thing.
You never know what they're gonna run with, man. I believe they're doing like the Lando Calrissian books are coming out in Essential Legends, Han Solo.
Did they mention the Lando? I don't remember that. I
Yeah,
remember the Han Solo one, but
yeah,
Lando one's good. I like
yeah,
those.
yeah. I'm
They're
excited, man. I'm
they're
gonna get them all.
they're different. They're different for sure.
Supporting the EU, and I mean, I like the way they look on the shelf. I wish they were in hardcover, all of them like that.
Yeah, but I like how they're the spines are all in the right location and looks good. You have that Legends banner. Some people don't like that, but when you have them all the same, there's something nice about that on the shelf.
Yeah, I don't mind either way. I like the name Legends. I don't know. Just to me, it feels stronger.
Yeah, it's a seal
It's,
of a
yeah,
seal of excellence, as Matt Wilkins would say.
yeah. Like that's the perfect. Like
Yeah.
that's bam. We know what it is. So what else you got going on, man? What else is you got planned for the rest of the day, the week?
The
Anything
rest of
good?
the day, well, the rest of the day's open because I had planned to watch the Daytona 500, but I might end up picking up Supernatural Encounters, doing some reading on that.
Yeah.
Trying to catch up on Marcellus streams. It's a weird deal. Like you don't want to be spoiled by a lot of that stuff, but at the same time, you kind of want to support them and watch it as it occurs and try to participate to the extent you can. And I think there are some revelations that you see on those streams, but I'm not sure it spoils the book because the book can kind of be read in any order, like going forwards or backwards. It's almost an essential guide in a sense that it's just it reveals some things that you may have been curious about, like the Lost 12, the Jedi. I think it reveals all of those. They did a stream about that was really cool. So, I wouldn't worry about spoilers so much for that.
No? Okay. Well, I've been staying away from it. Like I tell them that, like, because I think what they're doing is great, and I want to watch it, but I didn't. Like I want to read the book, But if it seems to you that it's good obviously good conversation, but they don't really. It's not going to take away from the experience. Because I honestly, after New Jedi Order, that's what I was going to read next was Supernatural Encounters. I'm excited for it. And then I was told, well, just hold off, read the Dark Past and like Legacy of the Force, and then that might add more to the book for you. So that's what I'm going to do, I think. And I'm going to take advice and roll that way. Just so I get an overall experience. Because I know Abeloth is talked about, and I know that's like in Legacy of the Force. So I want to understand that a little more.
She's in Fate of the Jedi.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to understand all that before I dive into it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a reasonable approach. Plus, you want to get the full-on story of what happens after Return of the Jedi, like you said. That's important too, because I think that's why a lot of people pick up the EU to begin with, to know what happens next.
Yeah,
right.
I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I'm torn. Like, everybody knows that I like the new stuff too. Like, I watch the series and the shows. I've read some of the books. But just the magic that is involved around the EU is just like there's nothing like it, man. Like honestly, personally, that's how I feel. It's special.
What do you think differentiates the EU? Because you started reading the new canon before the EU, right? So when you jumped over, like what were some of the things that jumped out at you initially that were different with the EU that maybe you didn't get in the new canon, or anything that might have been the new canon that isn't in the EU? Like, what do you think of that?
Well, I've read some of the one-offs of the new canon. So Master and Apprentice. I thought that was good because I just wanted a story about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. and I thought it was good, and I took it as that, right? And I read Brotherhood. I thought that was good too. And then I'm like, okay, I was kind of bouncing around. So and then I read like Mall Lockdown again because I've read that so much that, you know. And then I was like, High Republic. Everybody was talking about High Republic, High Republic, some of the YouTube channels and people I was watching. I'm like, all right, well, I want to jump on that bandwagon since that's new. And I just didn't have a clue what the hell was going on. Like, it's all predated,
Right.
way, you know, I understand that. Them are stories that haven't really been told. And then it's like, nah, I want to read stories about characters I know from the movies. You know, that's where it all started for me. And then I got into the timeline and started reading through the timeline, and I don't know, the way that all them authors that were involved, like you could tell majority of them really put good effort and really cared about what they were writing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I've read a couple of the first few new canon books, and for the most part, I thought they were fine. Where they lacked is the fact that they were constrained in that they didn't know what the new movies were going to do, and they didn't want to step on the toes of those new movies. So they had trouble creating a story that was the natural continuation of the films, the events of the films. Where is the galaxy going? Like where is this headed? And it may have been that they were constrained and couldn't do that, and that's why they suffered. I don't think they were necessarily bad. I liked Catalyst. I liked A New Dawn. I liked Lost Stars.
I like Lost Stars too. I haven't read the other two yet.
Yeah, and I didn't read too much after that. There was one, Bloodline. I think that was the last one that I read that I didn't really care too much. Okay. That I pretty much stopped after that. But you mentioned the High Republic, and that was an era where they specifically segregated that out so that they could create a story that naturally continued, and the movies wouldn't prevent them from good storytelling. Like they had that era wide open. They could do what they want and have continuing characters. The only thing about that is it happens so early in the timeline, it doesn't really have any ramifications later on. And for me, in reading the expanded universe, I always wanted to know what happened after the films.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm a little averse to the KOTOR era and the Old Republic era, because whatever happens there kind of stays there, except with certain things like the Sith and, Sith spirits that may kind of continue on. Everything's kind of self-contained. And why I like Tales of the Jedi so much, I don't know if you've read that series, is it ties into the Jedi Academy trilogy that was part of the continuing post Return of the Jedi storyline. That's why it was interesting to me. That's why I picked that up. But some of the other stuff, not so much, like Red Harvest and some of these things that were okay. They were fine stories on their own, but they didn't have any ramifications for the continuing saga. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I haven't read all of Tales of the Jedi. I've read half of it, but I know it ties in with, and that Marcel turned me onto that, and I always thank him for that because it's great. I loved that old school feel. Yeah, it was just good. Red Harvest. I can see how you're saying, like, some of these books in there are just kind of one-offs, and they're just a story. But I look at it as it's a story inside the whole sandbox. Like, it's just a part of it. It doesn't necessarily have to tie into Return of the Jedi or whatever, right? Or
okay, yeah, you're just reading it for the sake of itself. Okay,
yeah, like some books, right? Yeah. But then there's some that they do a good. Most of them, from what I've seen so far, do a good job of kind of picking up or pieces from and tying in different books that have already been put out there in the storyline, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the continuity has always been a big draw for me too, because there's not a lot of fictional franchises that
do that.
Don't reboot that have a continuing storyline. There's been kind of soft reboots with certain things like the Brian Wood series and some of the stuff that is meant for accessibility. There was a constant fight between continuing the storyline and make it accessible to new fans, because you don't want somebody to pick up, say, Fate of the Jedi and be completely lost. It has to be somewhat self-contained, in a way that, okay, it tells you that Luke has a son and all this stuff. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's like you have to have a starting point that is accessible for new fans.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride, man. I'm enjoying it. I've been reading nonstop for 2 years.
Wow. And what percentage of the way through are you? Where did you start actually?
Well, all over the place in the beginning, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm being honest, until I kind of got some direction, and then I found the timeline a little better and started to understand. I was just kind of lost. It's like I was lost until I started learning from all you guys.
Okay.
So then I went back and I started at the beginning. I haven't read Dawn of the Jedi because at the time I didn't have the book, but I read the comics. And I thought that was cool because I got that epic collection. And then I just started going from there. And there were some parts throughout that I skipped over because I didn't own all the books, like the Republic Commando. Yeah. I didn't read any of them because I didn't have them all. And I didn't want to start reading something I didn't have. And so there's some pieces here and there that I missed. But for majority, I mean, I got a good chunk of things out of the way. Like I didn't read the Han Solo trilogy yet. Like I skipped over that just because I didn't have them. I was kind of listening to people, like we were saying, the continuity. Some of the books fit better with other books, and other ones were just kind of one-offs, like I was saying. Or they just added some character background or some depth.
Yeah.
And then I got to Race Squadron, and that's where I stopped. And my friends, we started our book club, and we've been just kind of reading from there. We read The Crystal Star together. Okay. That was our first book. And we enjoyed it. All three of us liked it. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. I don't think it's that bad. It kind of got a bad rap early on because that was one of the first books that was released. And it was the first one that was weird. But
yeah, it's
one different. If you read all the Star Wars books, it's one weird one of many.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Yeah.
And then we jumped right in the New Jedi Order because I was, I already had some of the books already knocked out of the park, if you will. And that took us, we started last summer, I think.
Well, that's good. Yeah, the New Jedi Order, man, that was, it seemed so long until the next book. Because when you're younger, it like time seems like it takes forever. And I read them sort of as they were coming out. And it was a little bit, you had to wait for the next book and like, okay, where are they going with this? And then if you read some of the news, you can kind of get a catch of where they're intending to go with some of this. And you can't stay away from spoilers in some cases. So it's like, okay, Unifying Force came out. I hadn't finished the book, but I had to read the reviews on what people thought of it. And I ended up getting spoiled probably in most cases, but it was still kind of cool to experience that, at the time it came out with everybody together and everybody's thoughts. Not everybody was positive. People had some criticisms there too, but it was a good time. It was it felt alive in a way that is a lot different than it is today, where you're kind of reading, okay, what came out, but then at some point the story ends. And I think that's what a lot of people are frustrated about is, okay, yeah, we're probably never getting more at this point. And I think people are a little bummed about that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I understand that, now through this, like I'm a post Disney buyout EU learner, if you will. So I could see that. I mean, I'm enjoying it because I have a lot of stuff to read and I haven't read all the comics, and there's a lot of them. But there's a lot of material out there. So like you said, you can go back and read. Like you remember little bits and pieces, but I'm sure if you read something that you haven't read in 5 years, it's going to be exciting again.
I'm sure if I read through the New Jedi Order, all 19 books, one after the other, I'd get a lot different experience than I would having to wait and read them in release order. And a lot of this stuff, like Starfighters of Amadar, I remember the last few Bantam books coming out real time, and to add on those stories kind of after you thought it was done, it was kind of weird, especially things with like the Bounty Hunter Wars, and they went back and they wrote Tatooine Ghost and like fitted in before the Thrawn trilogy and certain things like that. It's like, oh wow, I didn't know that. I wonder if I'd have a different opinion about it if I read it in chronological order as opposed to release order. And probably that's something I haven't been able to do because I don't read as fast as Matt, and I don't have enough free time, and I struggle. Like, I'll read the first book in a series like Vector Prime, and for some reason I have trouble going on to the next one. And then before you know it, a whole bunch of time has passed, and you're like, okay, well, I should probably start out fresh. I should probably read it all over again. And you never get past the first couple books. It's just it's a struggle.
Yeah, and one of my buddy Spencer, who turned me on to the Terry Goodkind Sort of True series, like I found out he was a big fan of it, and that's how he did it. He like reread the books like a new one was coming out, and he'd start over from the beginning. And I mean, these books are huge. And that's another series I'd love to finish. I stopped for now because I was reading one of them in Star Wars, and I could do it, but the Sort of True series if the Star Wars book that I was involved with really didn't have my attention like it normally does, I would find myself wanting to read the other book more instead. So I don't want to do that. So I felt like that was taking away some of the story or pieces maybe I would miss.
Yeah. And Star Wars, it's weird too, because like you could read in chronological order, but that's not necessarily the series order sometimes, especially if you're in something like a crowded era, like between A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back. You could read all the newspaper strips, but then you have to jump around to like Allegiance and Choices of One and Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And I'd much rather read a series the way it was intended, like all the newspaper strips, than all of the Marvel comic series, than Allegiance, than Choices of One, rather than having to jump around. You have things like Galaxy of Fear in there too, and these missions books and all this different type of media. It can be a real challenge trying to go in chronological order with that. And I think you kind of forget a lot the more you jump around. It's better to kind of just read it in the order it was sort of intended to be released. Like keep all the series together, rather than jump from medium to medium. But you haven't even touched the comics yet, so that's there's a lot there too. I like the Marvel comics. I'm one of the few that actually enjoys them, even though there's some wacky stories in some of them. It kind of gets closer to what the rest of the EU is with the Mary Jo Duffy issues post Empire Strikes Back. It starts to the wacky characters go away. The Jack's bunny rabbit and that's the pirates, the space pirates. That kind of goes away, and it becomes more believable at that point.
Flows better.
Yeah,
we'll say.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. No, I've read Dark Empire, like some of the Tales of the Jedi, but like I haven't really jumped into that. I'm excited to though.
Yeah,
it'd be a nice break from from the novels, jump into some visuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should probably try that with your buddies too on the book club. That might be nice to read, mix in some comics here and there.
I'll tell you, I would recommend, like if you got some buddies that close by read, man, it's put a different aspect on things when you're just in a room chilling talking about a book. Like it makes you look at a book differently too.
Yeah, it's like going to the gym and having a personal trainer. It keeps you on task to read. Like you have to read this chapter by this date, and it keeps you going in a way that you can't do yourself sometimes. Sometimes other things get in the way, and you're like, oh, I can't read tonight. I gotta finish this project for work or whatnot.
Yep. Well, we all have families and other obligations that.
Sure.
Well, this was a lot of fun, Scott, man. I'm glad you decided to come on and hang out on a Sunday.
Well, when Stevie invites me on, I show up. It's like the Joe Rogan experience for Star Wars podcasts.
Yeah.
You've been having some just knockout interviews with these guests. John Whitman was a great interview, I thought, and I can't wait until you get Miss Wasserman on there to discuss Rebel Force. I hope that happens. So, congrats to you for getting a great show, man. And you have a big following with the EU community here.
Well, I appreciate it. That's very kind of you to say, man. Honestly, that means a lot. Yeah. I don't. That's a high compliment to say I'm like Joe Rogan, because I am far from that gentleman. He's incredible.
Well, you have a personal aspect to it. Like there's a point to the interviews. You're going somewhere, but you also kind of want to know a little bit about your guests. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I want it to be enjoyable for them too. And on page 34, what was the color of that droid in the back corner behind the bar? It's like, well, I'm not gonna. That's not me, man. Let's just chill and have a good conversation and talk about your work, because it's always impressive to me where their mind generates all this creativeness from, and what they gather inspiration from too. And I enjoy sharing that. And it's something that I can give back to all you guys that have helped me and whoever else watches. And one day, it's cool. It's been fun. It's been a fun ride.
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. We'll do this again. I'm enjoying doing these live streams. Just little interaction with people watching and something different.
Yeah. Weekends are tough because sometimes you don't get as much traffic. I think the late night streams, I tend to get more viewers for some reason. That's when most people are on Discord. That's when most people are kind of in the chat. It's kind of tough for us adults that have family obligations and other things. But
I'm not a late night guy, man. That's maybe some everybody's still sleeping in from partying.
all those youngins, they party Saturday nights.
Yes. So. Well, thanks again, man, and thanks for you guys watching, and whoever watches this after. Until next time. Talk to you guys soon.